Hi, I'm John Mancini with Content Results, and I've been doing a lot of work recently with Quality Associates, QAI, in the context of thinking about the implications of the M1921 set of deadlines for transfer of electronic records to NARA. And in that context, I've been talking with Scott Swiderski about some of the issues associated with any digitization project. And so I thought that it might be interesting to have a set of conversations with him and talk about the elements of successful digitization, because I was very impressed with the practical way that they approach these projects. So the first session, we'll talk about this whole question of how do you get started? How do you frame a project to begin with? The second one, we'll talk about how do you price this thing right? And that has dimensions both on the agency side as well as on the vendor side in terms of thinking, in terms of not all projects are alike. The third thing is talk about some of the unique aspects of federal contracting, because as I've learned from a lot of experience with companies and with agencies, it's a very different kettle of fish in the federal government than it is in the private sector. And then the fourth thing is talk about a typical timeline for a project. So I hope you enjoy the series, and I will post links to all of the videos that we've done in this series at the end. And thank you for your time. All right, in our second segment, I want to talk about something that is always a question I get from end user organizations, which are what are the factors that ought to be incorporated in pricing decisions? So often you get this sense that scanning has one price and one price fits all. And I think one of the things that I've really enjoyed talking to you about, Scott, is some of the factors that enter into pricing and why you can't just assume one size fits all. So why don't you talk a little bit about some of those pricing factors in a digitization project?
Okay, great. Thanks, John. Yeah, so price obviously is a key part of all of this, is to determine whether or not this service as an outsourced service can be arrived at cost effectively. So in many of our conversations, price enters the conversation maybe a little sooner than we would like, because we want to talk about the things that help to support the cost of providing the service. So let me take you through 5 quick things that generally have a lot to do with the level of effort and the scoping and the nature of our effort. The first one would be the age and condition and the quality of the material that we're intended to digitize. That has a lot to do with whether or not we can automate, use higher end big iron scanners type of thing. If obviously the condition of the material is very low, it's not likely that we can take a big iron like device and use that for purposes of driving up the throughput of what it is we're attempting to digitize on a daily basis. Therefore, causing us to put more time into the project, which is a direct reflection of the cost. Move on. The second thing I'd say has a lot to do with cost is the volume, right? So your partner, your vendor that you've decided to select should really also be focused on economies of scale. And so the larger the project, it's likely that the less the fixed unit cost might be to perform that task. The next thing that generally gets considerably underestimated is the document preparation work. And so we always make the comment that none of this material that we're working on has ever been considered to be scanned, right? And so as a result, the material has been stapled, it's been paper clipped, it's been bound, it's in all sorts of different arrangements that are not real friendly to the process of taking the documents through a scanner. And so as a result, we've got to prepare the material for purposes of scanning. In many cases too.
I was going to say, do you typically take a box or a sample of these things in order to get a sense of the scope of what's involved?
Oh, we absolutely do. So on all projects, and in some cases too, to scope out what we feel like the cost may be, we'll take it on as a proof of concept or a pilot. That's as important to our team as it is our client's perspective. We want to really gauge what the level of effort is that goes into this work. And as well, when we talk about doing proof of concepts, we really want as much of a sample set that we feel like is indicative of the collection itself, right? So we don't want what just is categorized as good. We really want to see what is considered to be of poor quality, and match that up against what is considered to be of high quality, right? And so then with all that into consideration, we can make a better determination of the overall level of effort. The next thing I'll mention that in some cases can be quite broad depending upon the number of resources you bring in to make this decision. But how do we classify the material, right? So, in most cases, this content, lives somewhere and it's intended to be retrieved by many. And so what indices, right? What metadata needs to be associated with this content for it to be retrieved later on? And the question really around where can we go to find that information within the document, right? Is this something that's, on a structured document and it can be found on the first page, or is it an unstructured environment? Are we going to have to go looking for the information to populate required fields? So again, just another area that tends to drive, the cost up in these programs. Then the next thing is time frame, right? So we get folks that come to us and there's a high sense of urgency due to the nature of the material, the project, and what it is that they're trying to do. And so, I guess the trend would be the faster the turnaround, potentially the increase in cost, right? So we're going to have to do more quickly, and we're going to have to come up with a plan that is supported by an SLA that we would consider to be an aggressive turn.
So I guess when you think about pricing, it's kind of comes down to like, it depends. And it depends on a lot of things. It depends on whether you're doing it on site, whether you're doing it off site, whether you're, whether how urgent the project is, what the volume is, whether they're dealing with incredibly fragile documents that, you need to be really careful with, or whether you're just, shooting a bunch of 8.5 by 11 papers through a scanner. All those kind of things factor into the range of prices to expect.
I think an easy mistake to make is pigeonholing a conversation about costs into a fixed unit area and multiplying it by what you think you have as a volume, and sticking with that in your mind as to what the true cost might be. I think it's important that you align yourself with the right partner and the right vendor, and they take you through this process to understand what all's involved in achieving the agency's goals, and then allow for that partner or that vendor to give you a sense of what the cost might be.
If an agency was to say, hey, we got an estimate of 4 or 5 cents a page for doing this work, would you be kind of skeptical of that they're not really understanding the scope of the project?
Well, I would say that that range would be traditionally on the lower end of the kind of services that are traditionally offered. And I would question probably pretty quickly where that information was made available from. There are cases where people talk about the actual per page cost. And in most cases, there's a variety of other, supported levels of effort that are categorized as additional costs. But for purposes of the conversation, somebody may have just extracted what the per page cost was and attempted to use that in their future conversation, that this was the only cost,
right,
that was due to be aligned with the outsourcing of this type of thing. So, I just caution, right? Always caution, and make sure you're aligned with the right partners to get you where you need to be, and make sure you have a comprehensive understanding of all the costs that are involved in doing this type of work. No surprises is what I think is important to building long-term relationships.
No surprise is probably a good point to leave it at when we talk about pricing and costs and all those things that people care about. So, Scott, thanks a lot for your time on this segment. And the next segment, we're going to focus on actually getting down to implementing a project.
Thanks, John.